to our Q3 Tech Insider Update. I am Bethany Voigt, Marketing Director here at JourneyTEAM, and we have a ton of great things to share with you today, so thank you all for joining. But first of all, I have a few housekeeping items to cover. So just a reminder, first of all, the webinar is being recorded, and you may ask questions in the chat anytime during the webinar. Our presenters will respond in the chat, and if we don't get to them there will be time during our Q&A at the end. Please remember to make sure to fill out the survey at the end of today's webinar. Survey respondents get entered into a drawing for a gift card and also receive the slide deck with all these great product updates. For those of you new to JourneyTEAM and who we are, I'd love to share a few more specifics. JourneyTEAM is a full implementation Microsoft partner. We provide consultation, implementation, training, and support. We've been around for almost 30 years, and we specialize in all three Microsoft clouds, so including Modern Workplace, Microsoft Azure, and Microsoft Business Applications. We are very proud to have happy and referenceable customers, and do urge you to check out our website for some great customer success stories. JourneyTEAM is also an award-winning partner, so we work hard to exceed expectations year over year with our customers, also alongside Microsoft and with our employees, winning Best Places to Work for the past few years. JourneyTEAM consists of 6 specialized practice teams whose aim is to really help our clients grow their business with Microsoft technologies and tools. So here's a look at that broad range of tools and applications that JourneyTEAM can help your business with. Our teams also have extensive experience across multiple industries, including financial services, manufacturing, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, and supplements, but our expertise does not stop there. I'm Bethany Voigt, Director of Marketing, and we'll also have Brandon Gorton, the CRM Director, Jared Foley, Cloud Solutions Architect, Eric Raff, Cloud Solutions Director, Napoleon Giullian, a Collaboration and Content Architect, and Nathan Giullian, BI Developer. So a great lineup of experts to share their tips with you today. And here's a quick look at the agenda and what we have in store for you. This is the order that we'll follow, so please stay on and engage for the full hour. Ask your questions in the chat as you think of them, and let's get started. Napoleon, you have the floor.
Awesome, thanks, Bethany. So the first thing that we're going to go over is just a bunch of updates for Microsoft Teams. So there's lots of great updates on Teams meetings, and then I'll go over on the collaboration side of Teams. So first on the Teams meetings, this is now in public preview, so you might have seen it, but there's going to be collaborative annotation in Teams meetings. So that's powered by Microsoft Whiteboard. And so previously you can't do Whiteboard and share that, but now you can collaborate with that with other people as well. So it's as if you have this digital whiteboard amongst whoever is on that Teams meeting. So that's really exciting for live annotation and collaborative drawing and whatnot. Another update is Speaker Coach is going to be available for presenting. And so when you're presenting in Teams, if Teams picks up that you might be talking too fast or you're using fill words like or I don't know what other fill words you might be using, it'll pop up on your screen that, hey, you should slow down, or hey, you should speak a little bit faster, or hey, you're using this word too much. So that's going to be really helpful for presenting. Another update too is the web client is going to use the modern meetings. So you may have seen that if you're not on the desktop application of Teams and you use it on the browser, you may have seen limited functionality, but that's going to be updated. So now that the web client, whenever you get on it, will pretty much have the same functionality and options as you would on the desktop application. So that's going to be really good for people that haven't used Teams and just to use it on the web as well. And some other updates. There's the together mode for everyone. We've seen that before, where when you put together mode on for your Teams meeting, everyone's like in chairs or desks. Just some cool features. You can actually now assign seats to people. So even in the digital world, you can keep people apart or put people together, and that's going to be kind of fun. And you can actually force everyone in the meeting to be in together mode, so it's not just your side. Within the PowerPoints, you can insert a live video feed of yourself in the presentation. Another awesome update to get your PowerPoints and your decks a little bit more interactive. And with your PowerPoints, you're going to have different options for your PowerPoint live options of sharing that within Teams. So you can do a content only, you can do a standout, which is that silhouette of you on top of what you're presenting. And you can do that cameo, like I just mentioned, inserting yourself in the live feed. And this is really helpful too if you have multiple monitors and whatnot. You can actually pop out your shared content window out of Teams. So now you don't have to keep, your participants and your content on the same window. You can pop those out and kind of have more space and options with your teams. And then you've probably seen this already if you're using Teams a lot, but now you can chat with yourself. So that's going to appear at the top. And it's just a chat, so you can send yourself files, send yourself notes, if you need to keep that for yourself later. So you'll see a chat with your name, and that's just for you. So that's awesome. And then these next slides you can see are just some screenshots of some of these features. So that one is the collaborative annotation. So example, if you're drawing or collaborating, multiple people can do that at the same time. This next one is that speaker coach. So this is an example of this user talking too fast. And so Teams is saying, hey, try speaking a little bit slower. So that's awesome. And then this last screenshot is that chat with yourself. So again, you'll see that you'll have a self-named chat and you can send yourself files, notes, whatever you want. And then on the collaborative side of Teams, and I'll touch base with this on the SharePoint side as well, moving files will be easier and it's going to be a unified experience. It's going to be powered by OneDrive. And so how you view moving files in Teams is going to be the same way you view files and move files around within OneDrive and SharePoint. And then the last item is adding that shortcut to OneDrive. And so moving into the OneDrive updates, the first thing is you'll be able to navigate to all your content from OneDrive. Like I mentioned, the interface for moving files around is going to be unified across all your cloud platforms. And so you'll see the same interface and you're going to be able to navigate all the teams that you're a part of on OneDrive. And this is a new feature as well, is that you're going to be able to delete large folders. So this used to be a limitation, but now that's kind of up a little bit, up to 10,000 items. So if you have large folders, you can delete bigger chunks at a time. On video and audio files, you can comment on them actually, and so that'll be helpful for collaboration of the actual video or audio file. And then you may have seen this in SharePoint or Teams, but switching between document libraries and work and personal files is going to be easier. You'll just have drop downs with your different libraries. That way you don't have to go to the site contents and navigate to the specific library you want. You can just switch back and forth a lot easier. And then just some last updates that's going to be super helpful for the user. You can pin important files to quick access, and then any shortcuts you have in OneDrive that you're syncing over into your OneDrive view, you can actually rename. Now, it's not going to change the folder name or the document library, but you can rename the shortcut to help you out a little bit easier. And so those are some of the screenshots of navigating through your teams, all the things that you're a part of, and switching between your document libraries. Again, just making document management and moving files around a lot easier for yourself.
Great. Thanks, Napoleon. That was great. We're going to shift now to Power BI. This is Nathan speaking. And Power BI has had some exciting updates this last quarter. So without further ado, let's jump right in. I'm going to go through a bulleted list, and then we'll go into detail of a few different options. Error bars are now generally available. You can have a filled map for your Azure Maps visualizations. Composite models on Power BI datasets and analysis services are in preview, which is super exciting. Composite models are awesome. Metric visuals are also getting some updates. There's a new DAX function called NETWROKDAYS. More on that in a bit. There's now support for multi-role RLS, that stands for row level security, in composite models. There's also a new connector for Datamarts that is in preview. We'll talk more about that in the Power BI service section. The Dataverse connector now supports display name for fields, which is so nice. Thank you, thank you. Updates have been made to information protection as well if you want to label your data sets and data flows with sensitivity labels. Table navigation has some improvements as well. Field parameters, which we'll go into later, are very exciting for increasing the usability of Power BI reports for your users. You can select multiple data points with your mouse. That's now generally available. Charticulator is now generally available as well. And Canvas Zoom is now generally available, which is super exciting. And with that, let's go into more detail on NETWROKDAYS. So you'll see up on the screen here, this is the NETWROKDAYS function. I've got a holidays table here. These are just random dates just for an example. But those dates you can use to specify, these are my holidays for my company. Maybe your company has different holidays than the national calendar, or maybe you're a global company and you want certain holidays that are celebrated in other countries show up and not count as work days inside of your metrics. Maybe you're calculating overtime or other metrics for performance for your employees. NETWROKDAYS makes it really easy to count the number of work days in a certain period of time. Let's go next to field parameters. So on field parameters, this allows you to add fields to a slicer, and then that you can then add to a visualization. Once you select the fields you want, I'm selecting category and segment, you can add them to a slicer here. It creates this DAX code in the background with a connection to your model. So now on this matrix, or this table, excuse me, when I select specific fields, it adjusts the table only to the fields that I have selected. And I'm sure some of you have tables that have a lot of columns on them, and this could help make it so your tables aren't so big, and so users can control the table or the columns in the tables that they see inside of their Power BI reports, which is amazing. So again, NETWROKDAYS, field parameters, amazing new features inside of the Power BI desktop. Let's move on to the Power BI service. So in the Power BI service, we've got a few different updates. Datamarts, which are super exciting. We're going to dive into those in just a minute. Introducing the Data Hub. So this is an upgrade of the Data Set Hub that now includes Datamarts. And the Data Hub that now is a great place to go and view all of the data sets that are in your Power BI service and see details about them, like table names and field names. And so now that will have Datamarts included. We've got Power BI data storytelling, Power BI metrics updates. They used to be called the goals section. It's been updated to metrics now. There's a deprecation, this is important, of a feature dashboard as your default landing page, and also a deprecation of the dashboard performance inspector. So just be aware of those. If you have those being currently used, they are going to be deprecated. Power BI storytelling is super exciting because it allows you to embed a Power BI report inside of a PowerPoint presentation. You can see here on the screen, I've got in a little red box that you can export to PowerPoint, embed live data, and also on the little GIF here, you can see that as I can click and interact with my report inside of PowerPoint, which will make your PowerPoint presentations just be next level when it comes to presenting your data in a live format. Super, super exciting for those of you that will be using Power BI data to present maybe in weekly, monthly, quarterly updates. Again, that's Power BI storytelling. And now, probably the most exciting announcement for Power BI service is Datamarts. So no more are Mac users blocked from report development. No more are you shut out. Datamarts are a self-service analytics solution that enables users to store and explore data that is loaded in a fully managed database on the cloud. You can build measures on the cloud, which is awesome. You can develop a complete report on the cloud with Datamarts. Now, it is a premium-only feature, so let's go over a few of the great things and some of the gotchas, maybe. So here are the benefits that Datamarts offered. Self-service users can easily perform relational database analytics without the need for a database administrator, essentially having your own little SQL database built inside of Power BI. Datamarts also provide end-to-end data ingestion, preparation, and exploration with SQL, including no-code experiences. So if you know SQL, Datamarts allow you to leverage all of your SQL knowledge. And if you don't know SQL, you still have a no-code experience. Datamarts also enable building semantic models in reports with one holistic experience. Some of the other features are it's 100% web-based, no other software required, a no-code experience resulting in a fully managed data mart, automated performance tuning, built-in visual and SQL query editor for ad hoc analysis. Again, those of you that really like SQL, you can just run SQL queries against your data model in a data mart. Support for SQL and other popular client tools, native integration with Power BI, Microsoft Office, and other Microsoft Analytics offerings. Now, it is included with Power BI premium capacities and premium per user. This is the only gotcha, so you must have premium in order to use Datamarts. And that's it for Power BI. Power BI Desktop, we had NETWROKDAYS, field parameters is the most exciting updates. For Power BI Service, we had storytelling with live data in PowerPoint and Datamarts for premium. Thanks for joining this Power BI piece.
Okay, this is Eric Raff, getting ready to walk through some Azure AD updates. So where we're going to start with is the naming and marketing point of this. So Microsoft has chosen to roll up all of their identity-based products into a new product name called Microsoft Entra. So this is Azure Active Directory, P1 or P2, doesn't matter. Permissions management, that's their access governance framework, and then verified IDs. Verified IDs are a new technology that allows users to own their own identity regardless of the company they work for. So it's an emerging technology there. So just want to let you know, Microsoft Entra, when you hear that name, think, for the most part today, think Azure Active Directory and permission management. That is a third-party product that they acquired about 1.5 years ago that they brought in. That's all being rolled up under this Entra product name. As a tip, you can go to entra.microsoft.com to see this new kind of unified portal for the all things identity related in Microsoft's world. Okay, so with that, let's jump over to, this is a little screenshot of what that dashboard looks like. When you go to it, there'll be 3 doors, if you will. On the left-hand side, you can expand out those blades and look at some stuff there. And by nature of this announcement, they have started to introduce some new look and feel and some new features here. One of my favorite features, I use this literally every day. So if you haven't seen this or played with this, this is super helpful. It's the all users view. It is a preview model here, but it's just an updated UI for the Azure AD portal. And for users and groups, there's some really slick things you can do in here. You can add columns here. So if you manage your columns here, you can add all kinds of columns that shows up here. You can also drag and drop these columns in different orders if you want. So grab the UPN and drag it to the left or right, and it'll just move that column around. So some slick things you can do there. In addition, you get to see a bunch of more attributes about the user inside Azure Active Directory. So this is super, super helpful. Before, the way I would get to this is through PowerShell or the Graph Explorer, another little tool. I can even see the on-premises attributes when you're in a hybrid mode with Azure AD Connect in place. I can even see the on-prem extension attributes, etc., all through the GUI here. I can edit some of these attributes if my users are natively mastered in the cloud. Okay, so the day has come when I'm seeing more clients. In fact, JourneyTEAM ourselves, we no longer use Active Directory in our environment. New employees are created natively in the cloud, and all of our existing employees are native cloud accounts now. So if you want information of how we made that journey, reach out to us. But you can edit information on this page, employee ID, etc. You can edit those attributes natively now up in the cloud, and you get a lot more visibility there. So I don't want to belabor that point, but really, you got to go play with this. It's super helpful. Okay. All right. Another new feature here is custom security attributes and management roles. This is the future of Azure schema extensions. Okay. I'll say that they're still new, and depending on your needs and your use cases, I would pause before I went and hog wild with these. There's some nuances to them about how you can leverage them. So for example, if I built a custom security extension, and can I leverage that in a rule for a dynamic group? No, you can't today. Could I leverage it in a SAML response for an attribute that I need to send out to a third-party SaaS app? No, I can't do that today. So this will mature and get better, but it's really powerful. And the thing I love about it is it's very easy to interact with, and you can scope and target who can edit what attributes in Azure. That's huge. Okay. So this is where Microsoft's going to go. They've got a great foundation here. And as they mature the interaction of these custom security attributes with other services, like dynamic groups and SAML things and emitting this data into SAML and OIDC tokens, it'll be really, really powerful. So just wanted to give you a heads up that that is coming. You can also get attribute sets or families of attributes. You can apply attributes to enterprise apps. So I can start putting metadata around my enterprise apps to group and categorize them together. So some really neat things coming with these custom security attributes. Okay, moving on. One of the biggest new updates is administrative units, not just administrative units, but dynamic administrative units. So if you've never played with administrative units and you're trying to relate to what these things are, think of them as sort of similar to traditional Active Directory organizational units. Okay, they by purpose have a different name called administrative units. For the most part, the cloud is flat from Azure AD's perspective, and you don't organize things into OU structures. But you can now organize administrative things by the administrative unit, and you can make the membership of those administrative units dynamic. Where this becomes really helpful is any organization out there that has delegated administration, and you've got a group of users or devices that you want to hand off the administration of those accounts to another part of the organization. You can give someone an Azure AD administrative role, and it only applies to the objects in an administrative unit. So now, instead of giving somebody a user administrator role and they can administer any user in the tenant, you can scope that Azure AD role, which has been there for years and years, right? You can scope that Azure AD role to specifically the objects in an administrative unit. And who's in that administrative unit? All users with UPN of fill in the blank or attribute of Y or whatnot. Okay, so like I said, this is a super, super helpful thing for organizations that like a distributed administrative model for users and or devices. Okay, so that's administrative units there. And if you haven't been paying attention, please listen now. If you are running Azure AD Connect and you're synchronizing your on-prem Active Directory up to the cloud, and you are running on a 2012 server, you need to get upgraded. So Microsoft is retiring the old 1.x versions of Azure AD Connect, which will run on 2012. Okay, and that's going to be coming up like very, very soon, into this month. Okay. You need to be on the 2x version of Azure AD Connect, which you need to be at least on 2019 or newer. Like could be 2016. There's just some PowerShell versions that it has to support there. Okay, and so Azure AD Connect, if you never think about that and it just runs and you don't never worry about it, well, it's time to think about that and worry about that. Okay. In addition, I mentioned earlier, if you're ready to move so you don't have on-prem AD, JourneyTEAM has made that transition now. And so we can talk to you about what that looks like. And we've got several other clients that are native cloud identities now. Okay, so be aware this is retiring Azure AD Connect versions. Okay, and last little interesting tip, if you there is some very specific circumstances where Azure now supports that they've had a weakness, and that's solved with this multi-instancing support now. This is a good example of here is if you have multiple Box accounts and you want to have single sign-on with each of those Box services, and they all get represented by one application in Azure AD, you can configure that. And so if you need guidance on that, let me know, but it supports both IDP and SP initiated authentication flows. So how the users get to it can be either option. And there's some advanced configuration options available to you on the enterprise application on the configuration of those attributes that help it keep straight which apps are what. So simplifies that. If you're using Box or AWS, these could be really helpful for you. Okay. All right. And that takes it through some of the identity updates there. And so we'll hand it over to the Dynamics team. Take it away.
Excellent. So a couple of the items that I'm going to be talking about today, I got 2 items that are going to be covering the sales premium features, as well as one item that's kind of going to be referencing Dynamics collaboration. So sales premium has kind of traditionally been in kind of an interesting spot where the sales enterprise license is generally the best bang for the buck as far as meeting the needs of current state users as well as future proofing, just by way of the additional Power Automate, licensing and power that they get, as well as their ability to kind of embed Canvas apps and leverage Canvas apps. So, but there are some interesting features coming out for that sales premium license that I wanted to talk about because these things do come up with current customers. And I do see a couple interesting use cases for how we could leverage these additional features as well. So one of them is going to be related to the seller dashboard. So this is going to be a new feature. Public previews coming out in October, and looks like general availability is in December. And so what this is if you have a sales premium license, this dashboard is accessible from the work list that you would be presented in your Sales Hub. And it essentially does some interesting aggregates across contact points, activities, and being able to kind of report on those activity numbers. So we do have customers, and when we talk to prospective customers, there are companies that track and report on sales representative performance, not so much just by the close percentage or size of the deal, so on and so forth, but they also track just the activities that the sales representatives are doing and performing. So this would be a good way to easily be able to monitor and see the activities, not only from a management perspective, but from an individual like sales representative perspective. And one thing really interesting to call out here, because this has been coming up, is that depending on how your organization is engaged with sales and how you farm and hunt, this dashboard does take into consideration LinkedIn activities. So activities that you're performing on LinkedIn can be tracked here. So that is something very notable because as sales is evolving in this day and age, the importance of LinkedIn is kind of growing, and being able to track those LinkedIn activities is huge, and especially be able to track them in and out of the box capacity. So it's some use cases for sales premium licensed users would be not every sales representative would need this kind of license, is kind of how I see it. But inside sales, this is a great opportunity for them, especially here at JourneyTEAM. When I walk by the inside sales team, they're constantly in LinkedIn. So I think that this could be a good opportunity for inside sales reps, or a slice of your sales team that could really benefit from some of these sales premium features. So that's the seller dashboard. And kind of like I said, is public preview is in October this year. I try to choose features that are in public preview or early access this quarter, because there are a lot of really cool features that are going to be in availability and preview kind of going into later in Q4 this year and Q1. So next up, this feature is kind of related to some of the additional collaboration features. This is related to how Microsoft is engaging with how O365 work, how Dynamics works, Power Apps, and as well as Teams from a collaboration standpoint. So this feature is kind of going to be related to you can be engaged in dealing with live data from Dynamics in emails, in Teams, and you can update that data, and it can be reflected in CRM. So it kind of just, it's no longer living in silos, but how everything works together. So how you access this, I jumped the gun a little bit, but you'd use the @Dynamics symbol. And if you have this feature enabled, you'd be able to do this from within your Teams or Outlook, and it would then be able to you'd be able to do a query and look for data from within Dynamics. So it's very similar to how Viva works, if for those that are familiar with Viva, and even the upcoming Viva Sales implementation. So pretty cool. And the next slide, now that I led us here, is that you can kind of see how this would look from within the Teams environment. So you could do the @Dynamics, and you could find that record, and you could view those details of that record. It'll do a modal pop-up, and you can edit and update that information, and you don't need to go back into Dynamics to do it. So from a collaboration standpoint, you can share records, you can interact with those records and collaborate on them, and you don't have to go navigate to different places to kind of break up whatever you were doing in that focus time. And this last feature, kind of jumping into enhanced sequence creation. So this one's kind of new. It's supposed to be in public preview this month, or excuse me, early access this month. I don't see it in our environment, so depending on those of you that have the Sales Premium license, you may or may not be able to see and start playing around with this feature. But the whole idea is that you can create, as a seller or account representative or sales representative, is that you can create essentially tasks and automations yourself and kind of track those activities against a specific end goal. So kind of ambiguous, but really what it comes down to is that there's a difference between playbooks and these sequence creation. And how I have viewed it is playbooks are more of like, that's going to be able to create a checklist item for you to reference. Hey, I have this lead is of this type of industry. Here's my playbook for that lead, and here's some of my steps. The difference between this and sequence is that the sequence, the idea is that you are creating activities and actual action items, right? Like you're creating phone calls, you're creating tasks, you're creating appointments. Not that these things aren't items that we can automate in, behind the scenes anyways, based on the type of lead it is. Use some Power Automate automation to generate these tasks and the list of activities. But this is an out-of-the-box way to be able to do that, and you can even kind of be able to view and identify kind of where people are at against all these activities. So it's a slightly different view as far as, hey, I'm working this lead to order process. I'm using my business process flow, and I know what stage my opportunities are in. This is a little bit different, where this is managing the activities against that opportunity. So instead of like, a lot of people have lots of data points in the business process flow where, hey, I need to go check pricing with accounting or something like that, right? Where it's a to-do item where you could use the sequence. Instead of it just being a data point, it could be an activity that you're tracking against that. So essentially, it's trying to enforce a process amongst your sales team, sellers, account managers, and so that they're not skipping steps. And you can also track to see who is skipping steps as well, and the percentage complete of that specific sequence. So I'm looking forward to playing around with sequences a little bit more. There currently is the sequence if you have a Sales Premium, you can create sequences right now. And this is the enhanced sequence creation portion of it. So kind of looking forward to kind of seeing how this can improve in the use cases that'll kind of come from it. So those are some of the big things for Dynamics and with the enhanced sequence creation. And this last slide is just kind of, these are different Dynamics modules. And what I wanted to do too is talk about one other thing. I don't specifically have a slide for it, but I'm sure most admins in Dynamics platforms are getting the notifications as far as deprecated features, but it is a good call out that automatic record creation rules, the old version of these rules, so not in the unified interface, but in the old interface that are tied to, what looks like the old workflow interface, those are being deprecated, and that deprecation date is coming soon. It's in October. So if you have automatic record creation rules, those will need to be migrated, and there is a migration utility to do that, to transition those to the unified interface, and so that you're using Power Automate in the back end. So just something to keep in mind, because I would hate for anybody to have any of those behind the scenes and then they get turned off, and then you lose, whatever, email creation or case creation based on emails, so on and so forth. And that is it for Dynamics.
Okay, what you've all been waiting for, Exchange Online updates. We've got not a ton here, but something that is very important. We've been saying this for a while. If you haven't heard about this, you should be aware of this. Microsoft will be turning off some legacy protocols. This is specifically listed here. POP, IMAP are the big ones. Exchange ActiveSync is another really big one. And that is going to prevent your ability from using those legacy protocols, which can't do, quote, modern authentication into your tenant and bypass MFA. That's why they're doing this. This, of note, this will not affect SMTP authentication. If you have multifunction devices, scanners, printers that you are authenticating, that will still continue to work after October 1st. Fun surprise, Microsoft is starting to what I'm calling sending a shot over the bow of some customers' tenants. Had a client that Microsoft just decided to turn off legacy auth in the customer's tenant for 48 hours. And that got some attention. And so if you start having people with native mail clients on iOS that can't sync all of a sudden, that is probably because Microsoft is giving you a little heads up that this is turning off in October, and they're just trying to get your attention. So a most common thing that we see that's leading up to this date is native mail clients that were set up on iOS years ago, and they got their phone backed up in a new phone and restored and restored and restored. They still use the legacy Exchange ActiveSync protocol. They may be on an iPhone 13, but they're still using legacy protocols. This fix is very simple. Go into your mail app and your accounts and remove your Exchange account, and then just re-add it again, and it triggers modern auth and you're good to go. Last little thing on this point, if your tenant has not enabled modern auth for Exchange Online, you are not in a good spot. I literally was on a call last week with a client, and that had still not been enabled in their tenant. And so by default, new tenants have had this for years now. But if you've had a tenant for a long time and have never went and checked if your Exchange Online setting allows modern authentication, you better do that, because you'll hit a brick wall when this gets turned off. So that's the biggest warning and reminder. Let us know if you need help with this. But Exchange legacy protocols is going away come October 1st. So that's what I got there. Okay, well, we'll hand it over to the Viva team.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So just a couple updates on Microsoft Viva. Of course, within the past years, so Microsoft has been releasing several modules in Viva. So you're probably familiar with Insights or Learning. And so just a couple modules that are being released. Brandon has touched base on this on the Dynamics team, but Viva Sales is a new module that's coming out. And so there's a screenshot of it on the next slide that I'll get into. But basically, with the power of AI, your CRM is going to be integrated with your other applications like Outlook or Teams. And so when you're emailing back and forth with a client, Viva will pop up like, hey, do you want to add this as an account or a contact for an account? And it will try and pull all that data. It'll even add tasks for you to follow up and engage you with customers and whatnot. So it's just making the the sales process quicker, engage you and capture tasks and add customers and manage those relationships a little bit easier just across the board with your Microsoft stack. And so whether you're in, again, Outlook, Teams, wherever you're gathering and communicating with these customers, Viva will try and pull that for you quicker, so you don't have to go into Dynamics and try and do that all manually. So that's going to be super exciting if you have those licenses for Viva. And then the other module coming out is Viva Goals, and this is awesome for customer engagement and aligning your individual team goals and whatnot to your overarching organizational goals. And so Viva Goals is really a goal setting and management solution. And so there's going to be one centralized place for goal setting, and you can have a bunch of different dashboards to go along with your goals that you can set up. And again, it's going to keep track of your objectives and your different key results. And so in this next slide, you can see the screenshots for Viva Sales and Viva Goals. Again, if you have those licenses for Viva, you should be able to see these soon if you don't already. And so here you can see a dashboard. You can access this via Teams or online on the web interface and access your different dashboards that you can create. And you can see that your different Teams dashboards, or excuse me, your goals specific to your teams are specific to your individual teams, and they kind of roll up to the bigger goals that maybe your organization has set. And so that's really awesome for your OKRs and your different project goals and whatnot. So that's just a little bit on Viva, and I'll hand it to Intune and Endpoint.
Hello, this is Jared Foley, and we're going to talk about, inside of the Intune products, the Windows 365 Cloud PC product. This is a new feature that came into public preview where you now have the ability to resize your cloud PC. This has been a feature that's been requested for a while. A perfect use case scenario would be a user has a Windows 365 machine. They need it to be a little bit more beefy. They need their power user. They need more RAM, more hard drive. Up until this point, the requirement would be to create a whole new cloud PC for that user, and then you'd have to migrate their data over, and they would have to start on a fresh machine. Thanks to this new feature that's in preview, you now have the ability to upscale that machine to give it more RAM, give it a bigger hard drive, and a faster processor. This is something we've been excited about. We've already rolled this out for a lot of our clients that have requested this feature and helped them with it, and it works great. There is a couple of caveats to that. The first is you must have already purchased that new license that you need to migrate that cloud PC to. So make sure you have that license purchased ahead of time. And a machine, when it has been resized up, you cannot downgrade and resize it back down to where it was at. So it's only a one direction. You can move up, but you can't move back down. But yeah, it's a great feature. It should be in public preview for your tenant if you want to try that out. And that's the update for that.
Okay, we'll wrap this up with some SharePoint and some form updates. So some updates with SharePoint. With SharePoint syntax, you can now add taxonomy columns from modern library views. So basically, if you've set up a term store and terms within your organization, which if you haven't, I highly suggest that you do so in your tenant, you can now create columns based off of those terms and term sets really easily, as if you were just adding another column in your library or list. So this is going to be super helpful for search and organization of your content. And so moving away from your legacy file structures and folders within folders, definitely move into that taxonomy route and manage metadata. It's going to be a lot easier to do that now. And on that same topic, there's going to be tags available now in your images, so that now you can add or remove different tags, and AI even generates some tags for you on the detail pane of your images. So again, just more features for your content management, specifically your images. And I've touched on this before in Microsoft Teams, but accessing your standard and private channel files within SharePoint and OneDrive will be a lot easier now. It used to be separate and used to be a little bit difficult to navigate between your private channels and your standard channels, and in SharePoint, where is it at in OneDrive, it's going to be from the same view. So it's all going to be consolidated and going to be a lot easier, again, for managing content. And on that same token, this was released relatively recently, but that SharePoint app bar that's now available on that left side, if you've been on SharePoint at all recently, you've seen that left-hand navigation that's persistent globally. Now you're going to be able to create sites if you have the permissions to do so. You can create files, you can create lists from that SharePoint app bar and kind of specify where you're creating those documents. So now you don't have to be in a specific site or a specific library to create files or lists or site. It's just going to be there the whole time while you're on SharePoint. So again, super helpful and easy for the user and whoever's on SharePoint. Like I mentioned, you're going to be able to delete a large amount of files now. And then just as an update to Microsoft Stream, you're going to be able to add chapters to your uploaded videos. And so if you have a long video or something like a Tech Insider, like what we're doing now, you can add chapters of the different sections within your videos and whatnot, and make it easier for users to go to a specific section in a video. And so this next slide just shows a couple of screenshots. This first one is, again, just navigating between your different libraries and your teams and whatnot. And this is the global app bar, or the SharePoint app bar, excuse me, where you can now create sites, files, lists from that global nav. And so if you haven't already done so, I would highly utilize the SharePoint app bar. That way you can utilize and leverage SharePoint as much as you can. And just to touch base on forms, there's a lot of updates on forms. So I'll go over that really quick. And so just some new updates. There's actually just a completely new homepage for forms. And so your homepage for forms, there's going to be several templates that you can choose from now. And so you don't have to create everything from scratch. You can choose from several templates. And there's this really neat feature where you can actually create your forms or your quiz from a Word document or a PDF document. And if you upload that, Forms will analyze it and actually convert that into a forms. And so again, you don't have to create everything from scratch in Forms. If you have a pre-made questionnaire or forms, just go ahead and upload that, and Forms will create an online form for that. So that's really awesome. And now the max response limit is now 5 million. And so I don't know who's reaching that, but maybe you are. But you'll be able to get 5 million responses to any forms or quizzes moving forward. And then Forms is renamed to polls in Teams meetings. And so if you're on Teams, you'll see the Forms logo. It's actually called polls. And so that's where you can create your word cloud and Teams meeting, send live polls during presentations and whatnot. Just look for polls in Teams. And then there's just a last update. There's a new question type of a rating. So that's going to be super helpful for feedback type questionnaires and forms. So you can send that out now that we have a new question type of rating. And so this next slide just shows some of those updates. This first one is that new homepage. So it's almost as if it's its own app. Again, it's tied to whatever 365 group, or if it's been shared with you, you're going to have a new homepage with your templates and all the forms that you have access to. And this is also where you can upload. So this next one is that polls, like I mentioned. If you look for that, that's what it's under. And then this last screenshot is that upload of that Word document into Forms, and Forms creating a poll or a form from that Word or PDF. So that's going to be super helpful, honestly, if you have previously made forms. So that should be released soon if you don't already see it. So that's the updates on SharePoint and Forms. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, presenters. That was excellent. I do have a couple slides here just with upcoming things to expect from JourneyTEAM. But first, yes, if you do have any questions here at the end, we will have a few minutes to cover them. So please enter them into the chat there. We'll either respond there through chat or over the speaker here. But first, I want to give you all a heads up that we do have, although this is the final Tech Insider update of 2022, a great one at that. Thanks, guys. We have a lot of learning opportunities coming up in the next 4 months. So we have a handful of Sherpa program kickoffs. And if you're not familiar with that offering from JourneyTEAM, it's our guided implementation approach for Dynamics 365 Business Central, Marketing, Power Apps, and most recently launched is Dynamics 365 Sales. So please find out more details under services on the website for the Sherpa program. But we are very excited to announce the dates for this year's Business Technology Summit as well. That will be virtually on November 2nd and 3rd. And we're going to be breaking up content a little bit so you can play around, plan around your work days. So this will be our 10th year of Business Technology Summit. And the first day virtually, we're going to be covering biz apps. So Business Central, Finance and Supply Chain, CRM applications, and Power BI and Power Apps. And then the second day on the 3rd, we're going to be covering Modern Workplace and Azure. So Azure, SharePoint, Teams, Viva, data architecture and infrastructure as well. Sessions will be virtual, and we are also planning an in-person social on the night of November 3rd. So please save the date, and registration will be opening up soon. We will let you guys know via email when that is available. All right, so for questions and answer time here, we have a few more minutes. The first question I have here is for Nathan. So Nathan, if you could share, what is the best way to define company holidays to use in the network days you mentioned, the function?
That is a great question. The best way, you need to have it formatted as a column. So that could be a column in an existing table. That could be a SharePoint list that you connect to from Power BI that you can update dynamically. It could be an Excel file that you could have housed somewhere in SharePoint or OneDrive that you connect to in Power BI dynamically. You could hard code them in a table using the braces with your dates defined inside of there. I would recommend having a column that is easily editable because holidays may change, or that way it's easily applicable to maybe different teams in different countries if you have different teams in different areas. So using an Excel file or even a SharePoint list might be the easiest for users to update so that Power BI can then get those and bring them into your function.
Great, thank you. All right, this next question is for Napoleon. Napoleon, can you share, does everyone have access to the new Viva modules you shared?
That is a great question. So Microsoft Viva is currently on a license basis. So I believe it's insights and learnings that come with your typical, I believe, E365 license. So you should be able to see those. But for the additional Viva modules like goals and sales that I showcased today, those are on the Viva license. And that is, I believe, at $9 per user, or you can do some annual rate. But currently those additional modules are on a Viva license for the Viva suite. So if you want to access all those new modules, you do have to have a Viva license per user.
Excellent. All right, thank you. All right, and then I have time for one more question. Nathan, back to you. Why would you use a data mart over a data flow or data set combination?
Ooh, that's a great question. So the first option would be if you are a company that does not have Windows devices and you want to still be able to build measures and develop in the cloud. Some companies just use all Apple devices, and that's great. That way they don't have to remote in, it's just all cloud-based. The other reason would be, so Datamarts, again, remember, it's kind of creating your own managed relational database. And data flows are really good to load a large amount of data. They don't, but data flows don't allow you to do things like direct query. You might be able to take more advantage of direct query in a Datamart. Datamart also allows people that know SQL really well to leverage that heavily to make your data model, your data mart, easier to query and investigate and validate data on. So it's kind of aligning with the skill sets that people already have. Now, they are still in preview, and so because they're so new, we have not explored all of the different use cases for Datamarts. And so there will be more. I will have an extended answer to that probably in our next Tech Insider update, or even the one after that, as we explore Datamarts more and kind of find where they fit into the Power Platform, Power BI stack.
Sounds good. Great. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all for joining the webinar today. Quick reminder, Jen just entered the link to the survey in the chat, so please do take the survey. We will enter you into a gift card drawing, and you'll receive a copy of this slide deck. So thank you again, everyone, for joining, and have a wonderful day.